So you just sort of alluded to the two sort of situations we're in, the pandemic and the protests over police brutality and a reformation of law enforcement. It seems to me, and maybe I'm biased, that if progressive ideas had been being pursued, we might have avoided some of these issues, or we would come out of them much stronger with health insurance set up that would make sure that everyone could get the care for coronavirus that they need without worrying about going medically bankrupt or anything like that. Um, I'm curious, this moment that we're in, do you feel like the establishment, which doesn't necessarily support a lot of these reforms yet, they might occasionally say that they do, but substantively they don't appear to. Do you feel that they're going to be able to sort of get past this time without major changes? Or is there something about what's going on right now that perhaps could be pushed at the convention that is sort of going to be unavoidable, that people have been wised up to what's going on in a way that they can't come back from?
John, it's the progressive movement's job to make sure that they don't get by. As you just laid out, there are almost 45 million people unemployed right now. I believe about 30 million of those people don't have health care because it was attached to their job. And as you laid out, even in the face of a pandemic, now you done got me started. For folks to be heartless, because that's there's only two ways about this. You can campaign and say you don't believe in universal health care all you want, but then when COVID hits and the illusion is totally gone, where it is patently clear that having healthcare attached to one's job does not work. Baby, something inside of you has to say, I got to change my mind. I need to do a U-turn on this. If you truly, really care about the well-being of the people you're running to serve versus your owners. And I call them donor owners deliberately. I mean, something has to snap, John. And heretofore, I have not heard that from the presumptive nominee. So what are you saying, S&T? I'm saying this, is that it is the progressive movement's job to make sure that neoliberal and mainline Democrats are uncomfortable this entire time. And if Vice President Biden should win, to make sure that next day we take into the streets. And that the day that he's sworn in, that we're in the streets. And that nobody gets a free pass just because we like them, just because they're good retail politicians, just because we've said a few kind words about them in the past. That is time out for that. Too many people are suffering, John, right now, real suffering that was always there pre-pandemic. But now nobody can have an excuse that they didn't know. So that's whether we talk about racial injustice, anti-Blackness, to universal health care being a need, to making sure that the essential workers have what they need. Without them, where would we be right now without the store clerk, the people who work in the pharmacy, the doctors, the nurses, the housekeeping personnel, the sanitation workers, you name it, baby. Where would we be without those workers? So this ain't a joke. We're not playing games. People's livelihoods are on the line, John. We can't afford to play games anymore.
I know that it's a bit of a diversion, but you got me thinking about it. So I got to ask you. This is a question I've been asking a lot of the people that I respect most in politics. We have this moment that we only have every couple of years to replace some of the worst politicians with some people that are truly inspiring, that back the sorts of policies and hold the sorts of values that we approve of. Obviously, the pandemic makes it harder to campaign in the way that a lot of primary challengers would like to. And grassroots, bottom up campaigns want to knock on doors and they want to meet people, like door to door and all that. But at the same time, you're pointing out that for a lot of people, like these issues were already here, but
Yeah.
they're unavoidably real right now. So I'm curious, do you think that some of the difficulties of campaigning could be overpowered by the fact that the policies that these progressive primary challengers in states like New York and Kentucky are pushing right now, that might overpower that? Do you think that this is a situation that might actually make it more likely that some of them might win in primaries like tonight?
I think so. And, Professor Yamada Taylor, to sum up my answer to your question, wrote an article about 2 months ago now, and the title of it was Reality Endorses Bernie Sanders.
Hmm.
So reality endorses these progressive candidates, whether folks want to admit it or not. What is happening in real time in our nation and in the world begs the question, the insanity of continuing to do things the same way and expecting a different result. The heartlessness that it would take to look at millions upon millions of people who don't have health care anymore because it was tied to their employer and say to yourself, we shouldn't do a new thing. The heartlessness that it would take to look at how, even in the pandemic, John, The folks, the wealthiest folks, the greediest folks in this country are making a profit. I mean, they're not just a profit. They make it because there's nothing necessarily wrong with making a profit. It's about how you make that profit. If you're doing it off the backs and the necks of folks, then something is wrong with it. But that they're the ultra wealthy in this country have seen increases, while almost 45 million people have lost their jobs and their livelihoods, and then people have died. And those who have not died, baby, their lives are different and will be appreciably different for a very long time. So what I'm saying to you, John, is that reality endorses progressive candidates. And year by year by year by year, because we got to play the long game, we're going to overcome. This movement is only a little over 4 years old. We're infants, but baby, we have made some great strides. And I want progressives to understand that. Now we got many more miles to go. We got to organize. We got to unify more. And we got to be ready for these neoliberals. But make no mistake, reality endorses the progressive agenda.
Well, also Congressman Khanna does. So let's loop back for your action with RootsAction. People watching this, is there anything they can do to help increase the odds that Congressman Khanna ends up leading that delegation?
Yes, if they live in California and they're not necessarily a delegate, just reach out and support those delegates, get the word out, use their social media platforms. If they are delegates in the great state of California, make sure that they're ready, that they're at that virtual meeting, and that they cast their ballot for Congressman Ro Khanna. We got to be bold in this moment. And this is not being against anybody else. This is pro Congressman Ro Khanna, so that he can represent the interest not only of the great state of California, but the interest of the progressive movement at the Democratic National Convention.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.